something was missing in the field of psychology, that our psychological lives and our spiritual lives should be integrated, because it struck me that people went to psychology to figure out their problems, but they went to spirituality to relieve their stress and anxiety and become happy.
That we don't have to teach the sun how to shine, and we all have like a sun within us, and it's really just about gently moving the clouds from out of the way, and then this natural shining happens.
I'd like to introduce Dr. Annika Hurwitt. She is a psychotherapist from Martha's Vineyard, and she is here to help us discover how to gain psychological freedom. So how are we going to move our psychological life to become part of our spiritual evolution? I guess that's what we're talking about. So Dr. Annika, welcome to the show once again.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. My favorite thing is talking about psychological freedom and sharing with people what I learned 30 years ago that started my life of psychological freedom. I have a background and several degrees in psychology, but I would say 30 years ago, I was leaving the field. And that was because I was a pretty anxious person, and I spent my time either learning about therapy, helping people with therapy, and then going on meditation retreats to try to calm down the anxiety and the stress, or hiking in nature. And it always struck me that something was missing in the field of psychology, that our psychological lives and our spiritual lives should be integrated, because it struck me that people went to psychology to figure out their problems, but they went to spirituality to relieve their stress and anxiety and become happy. And I thought, shouldn't the purpose of psychology be to become happy? So my master's was in transpersonal psychology, and it gave me the authority to tell you that there was no integration of spirituality into psychology. There's lots of spiritual psychologies, but they talk about our spiritual experience. They give us techniques to tap into our spiritual experience, but you can get that through meditation. The question for me was, why weren't they integrated? So just as I was leaving the field, I got a doctorate in narrative psychology, and I was going to work with narrative healing, with storytelling. As fate would have it, a friend asked me to go to this seminar because I was struggling to make a decision. I was very anxious about a very big decision. And I said to my friend, if this is about psychology, it's not going to help me, because there's nothing in the field of psychology that can tell me how to make a big decision. Another way to say that is how to know what level of thinking one can trust. She said, I think you should just go. And I went. It was a 4-day seminar. And by the end of the first day, I was so present and calm and anxiety-free without having meditated or done any techniques, that I knew that I had found the link between psychology and spirituality that I had been looking for at that point for about 20 years. And I did the rest of the seminar, and I thought, oh no, now what am I going to do? Because I'm not going back into the field. But I knew I needed to learn about this for myself. And what happened is I became a much happier, simpler, calmer person. My relationships improved. My sleep disorder went away. My anxiety disorder went away. I began living naturally in the present without doing techniques. So for a long time meditator, that was actually a little bit difficult because it was an adjustment for me to leave behind all my meditation rituals and the retreats I went on. But as Sydney Banks, who is the wonderful man who had the enlightenment experience and realized these principles, and as who I was fortunate enough to study with, as Sid would say, when you find what you're looking for, stop looking. So what he taught us and what the principles he shared continue to teach people is how to have psychological freedom. And as Sid would say, once you get there, just live your life. Be simple, enjoy your marriage, go on picnics. He was a very simple man himself. He had a 9th grade education. And he was a Scotsman living in Canada and working as a welder. And this enlightenment experience happened to him out of the blue. And then he began giving talks and on the island of Salt Spring, which is off the west coast of Canada. And the mental health of the people who would come to hear him improved so remarkably that it attracted the attention of several psychologists. So this was in the 1970s. But the beautiful thing about Sid is because he was so simple, he spoke profound truth in a way that everyone I've ever introduced this to relates to. I work with a lot of MIT engineers, leaders, as well as regular folks, people who are highly educated, people who are uneducated. And the most common thing people say when they hear him is, this guy knows what he's talking about. So I want to talk about what Sid shared, and I invite you to listen just for the feeling behind what I'm saying, because I'm going to talk about principles, and we get principles through feeling. So when they're not cognitive, they're not information, they're a dynamic force in nature that are discovered by an insight or a realization. So this is how gravity was discovered, all the principles throughout time. They don't come through the intellect. They're not understood through the intellect. So when you think about how you learn to ride a bike, right? Nobody would have given you the definition of gravity and said, now go ride that bike. You get on, you feel it, you lose it, you feel it, you lose it, and then you click in, and that principle provides balance for you. So these are the principles of our psychological lives and our spiritual evolution. There's many ways to evolve spiritually, but one of the things that I so appreciate about this is that it makes that deep and profound connection between our psychological lives and our spiritual evolution. They are one. They are connected. We are not, Dr. Roni was saying, Martha's Vineyard is a bipolar island. We are not bipolar in that sense. Our spiritual lives and our psychological lives are one. And thank heavens for that.
I'm so appreciating the feeling of you, first of all. And as I was researching you before this conversation, I just found myself feeling incredibly calm. And that's, I do a lot of spiritual work that often does bring me to calm, but it's very special. And one of the things that I was thinking is I'll often say that we don't have to teach the sun how to shine, and we all have like a sun within us, and it's really just about gently moving the clouds from out of the way, and then this natural shining happens. So it's not about adding one more thing or 10 more techniques or 25,000 more things. It's kind of the practice of letting go and undoing.
The spirit of what you're saying is exactly what I'm saying. Thank you so much, because that is the profound truth at the foundation of this. We are all innately healthy. We are born with innate health. Just like everything in nature, we are designed perfectly. The clouds, as you describe it, are the thought patterns that get created over time and move into our unconscious and function on their own, right? The thing is, everything in psychology, or so many approaches, psychology caught on to the fact that thought is pivotal in our psychological lives, but without principles which do the work for you, which pre-exist us, which are spiritual in nature. Without principles, we're trying to use our personal minds to fix ourselves with techniques. And the thing is, we have 1 to 200,000 thoughts a day. There's no way we're going to make them all happy and positive and shiny. It's like trying to bail out a boat with a leaky bucket. It takes something larger than us. And fortunately, something larger than us exists. These three principles, which Sydney Banks discovered, are in place to do the work for us. We simply have to understand how it works. But I loved what you said, because for myself, having come to this after being in therapy and becoming a psychotherapist, I was so laden with thought about what was wrong with me and what was wrong with other people. And just knowing I was innately healthy took so much of that off my shoulders. And I find that in working with people, because I see them through those eyes, they begin to get better immediately. And it's because it's the truth. And that's why, small children are so full of joy and love and creativity. Nobody has to put that in them. That is who we are. And it's why when you go on a long vacation, or, you fall in love, or maybe you travel and your mind clears, no matter how low you may have sunk, all of a sudden you're back. Your innate health bobs to the surface as if it was like a beach ball that had been pushed under the surface of the water. And as soon as thought clears, boom, it's back. And that's a profound truth. And that's the truth that all of us who have learned this and teach this is what we know, and this is what we teach from, because we see it over and over again. So I want to talk about what these three principles are that Sydney Banks discovered, but this is where I really want you to listen beyond the word, as Sid would say, for the feeling, because you're going to learn this through experience. You're not going to learn it from what I'm about to tell you right now. You're just going to park this in the back. Then I'm going to teach you something so that you can begin to experience it, so that you can get on the road to what I'm describing. Is that okay? So Sid talked about 3 spiritual principles. He talked about mind, and he used that word to describe a larger mind, or a universal mind, a formless energy that has a deeper intelligence. Thought, which is our ability to put what I call shapes around that formless energy. And consciousness, which brings our thinking to life through our senses. So if you were eating, let's say, a coffee ice cream, and you were thinking, oh, I love coffee ice cream, consciousness is bringing you the smell, the taste, the texture. But if that coffee ice cream was in your mouth and you saw a kid run across a road to chasing a ball, you wouldn't taste the ice cream anymore, because your thoughts would be, I hope that child's okay. And your consciousness would be giving you the experience of those thoughts. This is our lives from the moment we're born until we die. So one way to think about the 3 principles is think about a movie projector as a metaphor. The electricity that powers up the movie projector is like mind. It's a formless energy that gives life to whatever it's directed into. Thought would be the DVD, the film clips. And consciousness is when you flick on the light on the movie projector, and now we're in the movie. And whatever it is, we're feeling it. If it's Romeo and Juliet, we're feeling love and angst, and then it switches to Jaws and we're feeling terror and stress. And this is our lives. Okay. So the thing is, when I teach this to people, people will always say, oh, I know this, I know that thought is creating my reality, right? But the thing is, you may know it up here, but in your moment by moment experience of life, you don't. And this is why. Because we see something, we have an experience, and then we have a feeling. So if I walk outside and there's a dent in my car and I feel upset, it looks like the dent put upset in me. It really looks that way because thought is lightning quick and invisible. I don't see myself thinking, oh my gosh, what's this going to cost? Will insurance cover it? Why didn't that jerk leave a note? I don't see that thought. I see the dent. I have the feeling. Now, what happens when we get into the illusion that life has the power to make us feel something is that our minds start going faster and faster. And that's because to the mind, to the brain, if one thing on the outside could make you feel something, then everything could. All of a sudden, we are at what people call the effect of life. The car can make me upset, my boyfriend, the weather, my daughter, my health. And so the mind's going, and that is the primary source of stress and anxiety, is getting into the misperception of where your feeling's coming from and then having your mind go into overdrive. What happens when our minds are in overdrive? Stress, right? Goes on long enough, anxiety. Goes on long enough, panic attacks. Goes on long enough, depression. So while, the DSM-11 or wherever we are now has a million explanations for this, we have one very simple explanation, which is it's a misperception of how your psychological life works. And then your brain misfunctioning essentially and creating an enormous cloud cover over that beautiful innate health that is inside of all of us. So while we as human beings can't take every one of those thoughts and fix them and reframe them and make it all okay, when you understand how these principles work, you learn to recognize when you're out of alignment with them and when you're in alignment with them. So just like if you were walking across the room and you lost your balance, those feelings would indicate to you immediately, oh, I'm losing my balance. And then you would intuitively get back in alignment with gravity. Everybody with me? This is how principles work. And nature in her wisdom gave us feelings to be our GPS system to know when we're in alignment and out of alignment. But while we know that with physical balance, we haven't known it with our psychological lives or our psycho-spiritual lives. So anxiety and stress are also indicators that you're out of alignment with how your brain actually works. You've just slipped into an illusion that my bills can make me upset, or my health, or my daughter. I've forgotten it's thought in the moment about. And as simple as that distinction might seem, we as human beings have the free will to point our brains in different directions. So when we point our perception into that illusion, we get off track. When we point our perception as to how it works, we get on track. And that's when your mind is going to calm itself and stop the overthinking and stop the stress creating thoughts. And that's when you come back to that beautiful feeling, right? So would anyone like to experiment with this? Yeah? Okay. Do people have paper? Okay. So if you have a piece of paper, what I want you to do, yes, is draw a line down the middle vertically. That doesn't matter. Yeah. And then put 2 lines, to sort of, let's see here. Draw a line down the middle, just so you know there's 2 halves to the paper, and then put a line here and a line here that you're going to write a sentence on, like a line and a line. Okay. Yes, thank you. Now I want you to think of something that looks like it's a source of upset, anxiety, or stress in your life right now. And I want you to write it down on the left side. Argument with my boyfriend, fight with a friend, finances, health, whatever. Everybody have that? Now I want you to take a moment and just close your eyes and ask yourself, how do I feel when it looks to me like that circumstance or person is putting, it has the power to make me feel something? My fight, how does it impact me when it looks like that fight is the source of my feelings? Or that bill or that health issue, how does it make you feel? Anyone want to share?
Stressful.
Yeah. Who else? Yeah, stressed.
Anxious.
Anxious. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyone?
Fatigued.
Sorry?
Fatigued. Exhausted.
Fatigue. Yes. There's nothing more exhausting than overthinking.
Anybody in our audience, you can type it in into
Frustrated.
the chat.
Frustrated. Thank you.
Frustrated.
Yeah. I often hear disempowered, out of control. These are all feeling indicators that you're in the misperception that something on the outside has the power to make you feel something that you do or do not want to feel. This also knocks you off track when it looks like so-called positive feelings are coming from the outside.
And Cynthia has added sadness. She feels
Yeah,
sad
and stressed. Yeah.
Sad and
Okay. Now put that exact same thing on the other side, on the other line, that other empty line, that same circumstance or person, whatever you picked as the source of current stress or distress. Everybody have that? Okay. Now I want you to close your eyes and take a moment and just remind your brain, I am feeling thought in the moment about whatever's on that line. I am feeling you, brain. My sad feelings are sad thoughts. My stressed feelings are stressed thoughts about X. My out of control feelings are out of control thoughts about X. And just stay with that until you notice a little shift in the way you feel on the inside. Maybe you feel a little calmer or a sense of relief. And when you're ready, please open your eyes. Okay, anybody want to share? What happened?
Well, let me share. So when I identified the source of the feeling, and it makes me feel stressful and also out of control and sort of sad. But when I think about it and I feel calmer because I know that I can change that feeling in the moment of what I'm feeling right now.
So
I'm not so sure if I'm making myself feel less stressful.
Yeah.
Because I'm still a beginner at this.
yeah,
But I feel like knowing that source that caused those feelings
yes.
I'm able to make myself feel calmer.
So a little more accurately probably is that when you remind yourself of the true source of those feelings, the principles are making you calmer. You know, your mind is calming itself.
Mm.
Thought is dropping. Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, and that's the key, is realizing that we are blessed with these very powerful principles that do the work for us. We just have to align with them. And when we align with them, our brain calms itself. Thought drops. It drains from your brain like oil from a car. And then what we have is space and room to be in the present and for our innate health to resurface. Anybody else have experienced anything here that you'd like to share? Anyone notice a settling down inside? You did. Awesome. So sometimes, I mean, it takes a little practice. You know, this is your first go round, but this is nature's design. We are designed to come back in the present. Our brains are designed to drop thought whenever we allow them to.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm really trying to get this. Okay.
Yes.
So is it accurate to say that we learn the power of how to let it go in the moment by using the principles?
Yes.
Like we learn, like all of a sudden we learn how to ride the bike, as you were saying earlier, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's this connection and we don't fall anymore.
Right.
So
Yes.
that's sort of kind of like learning how to let the thought of the fear go so that the gravity keeps us riding the bike.
Right. Yes. So you
Start to
make
get
that,
it. Okay.
yeah, you make that connection, you know, between these principles and your experience. And then they do the work for you. You're going to notice, oh, I'm calmer. Oh, I'm present now. So I guess you could say you're waking up to your mind's natural capacity to drop thought when you're not obscuring it with thinking something on the outside can make you feel something.
Right.
So our brains can drop thought, you know, off and on throughout the day. And when you start to understand that allowing your brain to drop thought is going to put you ahead. You don't have to be thinking all day long and then trying to go meditate or do a technique to unthink. You
Right.
just have to realize, oh, I'm doing the dishes. I don't have to be thinking right now. And your brain will just go, oh, thank you. Or I'm driving in the car. I don't need to be keeping it going. Oh, thank you. And every time your mind settles like that, you come into the present where your IQ goes up. They can measure that now. You get your big picture thinking back. So when you're caught up in your what we call outside in world, where you're in that illusion, your IQ goes down, you have tunnel vision. When you allow thought to drop, oh, I'm here, I'm back in the present. You enjoy the present moment. Your mind gets a restore. It restores itself every time you allow it to settle. The files sort themselves. All of my clients tell me, I don't know how it's happening, Annika, but I am so much more present and I seem to be getting smarter. Why? Because you're using your brain according to nature's design. So you're spending more time in the present where you're going to have more access to higher level thought. So this is just the beginning. I wanted to give you all kind of a taste of this. Yes, Siobhan, what did you want to add?
I just wanted to say that, you know, you hear about this concept of being in the present. Everybody's like, just be in the present, be in the present. But what you've done is give us, I guess, a tool or the awareness of
Yes.
how to be in the present.
Yes.
So it's not actually, is it a technique?
it's not a technique. It's a realization about how your mind works. The exercise I gave you, you could call that an exercise. You know, basically it's like a map. It's like a roadmap to how it works. But you can't quite call it a technique because you're essentially bringing consciousness to how your brain works. That's not exactly a technique, right? We call it an understanding. And then these principles, they're doing the work that people do techniques to try to do, if that makes sense. Yeah,
Right.
Roni.
So identifying the source, right? And then you actually find the feeling, or you just having the feeling. Is it sort of like free will? Like, okay, we have that free will to be able to not feel that. Even though the source happened, like your dent in the car and whatever anxiety or thing that just happened to me, but I could choose not to feel that at this moment. Is it like
Not
free
quite.
will?
Not, well, no, it's more like this. You have the free will to wake up. And if you wake up and realize you're feeling thought in the moment about the dent, I'm not going to change my feelings. But if my mind calms itself and my IQ goes up, my feelings change themselves too.
Mm,
And I'm going to feel different because I'm going to feel like I'm in the driver's seat. That's what happens when we're awake, how our brain works. And I'm going to know intuitively that I have access to the highest quality thinking available to me, and I'll get a good thought or an insight or something useful about this dent. So I relax. Because you know, we all know that. We all know that that the quality of our thinking is always changing. And that when we're in the present, the quality of our thinking improves itself. It's very important to realize the principles do the work for us. We just align ourselves with them.
this is so amazing to me because there's just so many people that they live by going to see their psychiatrist, and they get the medication and they go like faithfully, but they can do it forever, for years. I know people that's been seeing their psychiatrist for years.
Oh, yeah.
And so you gotta wonder, um, what they're thinking, because they don't seem to be getting better. Sorry,
Well,
this
it's
might be a
because
red
it's
hot
all,
topic right now. Is this a red hot topic?
no, it's all that they know. It's all that the field of psychology knows. You know, we try to analyze our problems. We might say, oh, you developed an anxiety disorder because of X, Y, or Z. Oh, it's not getting better. Here's some medication. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, because that source of anxiety could have been from 20 years ago when they've got raped or when they had a trauma, but they're still feeling it today. Is that why they keep going to the
Yes, but,
psychiatrist?
and the thing is, it's, it's not the rape or the trauma. It's their thought in the moment about the event.
The rape or the trauma. I get it.
There's an incredible book, and I'm probably blank on the name now, but a woman she was so struck by how differently people respond to trauma that she interviewed 500 people who had had traumatic events. She just did all this research, and all she came up with was, we don't know why one person could be raped and get over it and go on to have a great life. Another person could have, someone look at them, in an inappropriate way and be talking about it 20 years later. This is true. This happens.
Mhm.
And we don't know why, because she doesn't know about this. But people who have learned about the three principles know why. Because the people that don't recover from trauma are thinking that the trauma has the power to make them have feelings.
Mhm.
People who recover from trauma know that they're feeling thought in the moment about the trauma. So their mind comes into balance and starts cleaning up the trauma. They're
Mhm.
able to be present to the trauma, have the traumatic thoughts and feelings in the moment, And then again, nature has given us, designed us perfectly to get over trauma as long as we are, know how to do it. And just knowing that creates this huge subtraction of thinking that we're all doing all day long. Why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this way? And if you're in therapy, you've got a million different reasons. The thinking grows. In this work, the thinking is subtracted. And that's why you start to experience psychological freedom. Yes, who is next? The question.
Dr. Kelly first, Dr. Roni second.
I'll throw
I
in
love
a,
this topic.
so first of all, it seems like the exercise, or the quote unquote exercise, was
Yeah.
to write down something that is troubling us, or something that's taking up some bandwidth
Yeah,
on one side. And then on the other side, we kind of repeated it,
right.
so that we
Because
didn't do anything different.
that's the whole point.
And then we just kind of closed our eyes, and this is my summary, is that we just kind of sat with it.
Yeah.
And in the process of, I mean, I'm sure there's a few other things that you said or did in there, but it felt like it was time. It's almost as if to say the natural wiring of my brain, if there's something unpleasant, is to not look at it, or if I'm gonna look at it, I'm gonna go in and fix it, which is to go in with not an acceptance or an embracing of what it is, but it's a, this isn't good, this isn't right, this shouldn't be here, let me get rid of it.
Yeah.
And what you just had us do is write it down twice. And in the time that it took, we were sitting with it. So just like Xenia shared something, can I share a little thing that happened to me? It wasn't so little, but I was attacked a few years ago by two huge bull mastiff dogs. I
Oh.
was jogging in Santa Fe, and one, and I'm smiling as I say it, but it wasn't pretty at the moment. I mean, I was like, they were huge,
Yeah.
and one was on, like, trying to like eat my arm. And I noticed myself getting calm and kind of getting outside. And there was a monk that I knew from a long time ago that was he was a trauma facilitator. And I remember him saying to move the energy out in real time. And so I noticed when I came back in, the man who owned the dog said, like, are you okay? And I noticed myself wanting to say, yes, I'm fine, and just suck it all up. But that monk was in my mind saying, no, 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 real time, let it go. And I was like, no, I'm not fine. And I just like, ah. I just kind of cried and shook
Yeah.
for about a minute.
Yeah.
And then I was really fine.
Yes.
And I see dogs, big dogs, and I don't have a trauma response,
Yes.
which people would think. You just were attacked.
Yes.
You should be scared when you see dogs approaching in a similar manner. And I think because I felt like I got into what happened. I was with it.
Yes.
And so I actually kind of like the memory, strangely. Not that I ever want it to happen, and I don't want it to happen to anybody, but there was some kind of just being with it.
Yeah. Well,
And
again,
then it didn't take me over.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is
well,
aligned, but
it's
I like the IQ idea, because I feel like that's a big takeaway.
You're speaking truth. And if you think about how we respond as children, you can always find nature's design if you look at how we start out in life. So when a child has a trauma, if they're in a safe environment, they do exactly what you did with the dogs. They feel it, they cry, they scream, and then the feelings, they're present to their thoughts and feelings, and so the thoughts and feelings can move on.
And go back and play within
and then they're
moments.
back. And now if it's a severe trauma, that will happen several times. It could happen, depending on the trauma, over weeks or months. But in that ability to be in the moment with the thoughts and feelings as they arise, nature's going to keep clearing them from your brain, because thought is designed to move, right? But how we don't get over things is we dissociate, or we deny, or we think the feelings are too terrible to feel. So we get in our heads, we analyze them, we tell stories about them, we get in the past and the future about them. And this is when trauma or loss turn into depression. But when we're, again, following nature's design and we're with the thoughts and feelings as they arise and then let them pass through you, nature will bring those thoughts and the feelings that go with them over and over, and they'll have less impact every time. And then you'll notice, I'm over it. It's not impacting me the way it did. And that's empowering. And that might be why, Kelly, you like to think about that, because that was an empowering experience for you. You got to experience firsthand your resiliency to get over a trauma. And that's important. It's very empowering to realize through our own experience how resilient we are. Because, you can't, life, as Sydney Banks used to say, life is a contact sport. Things are going to happen. So we need to know how our minds work. We need to know how to get over things. We need to know how to regain our psychological balance every time we lose it, which, by the way, happens off and on all day to all of us, me too.
Some people have that just innate ability to do that, because John will tell you that I don't remember a lot of things because I process them and then I forget them. Like I go through all the emotional things, and I'm sure that some of my friends know me well enough that I am right in there like a dirty shirt
Yeah.
with the emotion,
Yeah.
right? And then a few hours later, I'm cool about it. Like I've
Yeah.
said my piece, or I've done my thing, or
Yeah.
right, I've figured out a way, or I'm allowing time for, you're allowing time
Yeah.
for the illusion to disappear, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
that's a
bringing
blessing.
you, is that right?
Absolutely. You just never interfered with how we are naturally, which is a beautiful gift. Yeah. Yeah.
There are times when I hang on to something and I hang on to something, but it's part of me working it out. And
Yeah.
then eventually I just forget it, and it doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah.
It's just things. Let's say somebody stole something from you.
Yeah.
In the space of time, it really is just things. I can't take it with me. I've got the memory of the things if they were important to me.
Yeah.
Right. So that's waking up from the illusion, is that all the things and the happenings around us are just, well, they're now in the past. So how we react to them in the present is causing that anxiety and
Yeah.
and the sadness and the depression, correct?
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, we're finished for the night then, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Annika, thank you so much for joining us. I think people don't put enough effort into discovering their spiritual evolution.
Mm.
And your 3 principles are really going to help all of us. And if you've missed her 3 principles, go straight to her website, AnnikaHurwitt.com, and sign up for her newsletters, whatever is going on there, and figure it out. Because when you start to go through that evolution, you do break out of the matrix, and outside the matrix is so much fun. It's so amazing to, the people out there are incredible. So do you have a few last words for the audience?
Just to remember that you are as innately healthy as the day you were born, and that nothing can tamper with that spiritual health and beauty that is at your core. And it's always just a thought away, and you will be able to reclaim it pretty easily.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for coming.